I'll do my readouts a little bit later. Welcome to our guest, Pledge of Allegiance, Chad Mabry. Yes, look at that.
Please. Come on forward. Come to the podium so we can hear you.
Okay, hand over your heart, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Everybody's hitting lights. There we go, that's me. Okay. I need a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda.
I'll move that we adopt.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, report of closed session items. We have some new administrators. So
Hi, ladies.
let's
Hi, gentlemen.
start with the top here. So I get to read this. So our first one, we voted unanimously in closed session to approve the following administrative appointments. And we will make all of you get to the microphone and just tell us a little bit about yourself. First one is Maggie Mabry, Principal, Hickory Elementary School, effective July 16th, so tomorrow. Her husband will take her out to a very expensive dinner tonight. I hear Fleming's is good in the evening. Maggie served the assistant principal at Hickory Elementary since November of 2016. During her tenure as assistant principal, her leadership experience in the areas of curriculum development, professional development, technology integration, community relationships, and professional collaboration has contributed to maximizing student learning within and outside the school environment. She previously served as a grade 7-8 teacher at Manhattan Beach Middle School and Manhattan Beach Unified School District from 2001 to 2016, a teacher on special assignment for the 2012-2013 school year, and a grade 6 through 7 science teacher and reading intervention educator at Horace Mann Elementary School in the Beverly Hills Unified School District from 2000 to 2001 school year. She has received her Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education from Iowa State University in 1999 and her Master of Art in Education Administration in 2006. We would like to congratulate Maggie.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, Board of Education, and Dr. Mannon and the Cabinet. I am so honored to continue to serve in the amazing community of Hickory Elementary School. I have had quite an educational journey, and it's kind of scary when you start putting dates on it, and you're like, ooh, wow, that's like 15, 20, almost 30 years ago now. But my time in Torrance has meant so much to me. I'm a huge member of the community here, my husband being the president of the Ed Foundation. We are our children go to school here. We are such proud members of the community, and I'm so glad. I have some amazing teachers here that I get to continue to serve, and I'm honored to be a part with them as well as the amazing students at Hickory. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Lee, if I might, one other accolade for Maggie is she's the former state teacher of the year when she was at Manhattan Beach Unified.
Okay, next, Peter Lorenza, Assistant Principal, Jefferson Middle School, effective July 16. Yeah. Well, Jefferson's good because I live across the street. Pete comes to our district from Glendale Unified School District, where he served as physical education teacher at Theodore Roosevelt Middle School since 2011. He previously served as a physical education teacher and head varsity baseball coach at Covina High School and the Covina Valley Unified School District in 2008-2010, and as a physical education teacher and head varsity baseball coach at Glen A. Wilson High School in the Hacienda La Puente Unified School District from 2005 to 2008. Pete received his Bachelor of Arts in Physical Education from the University of La Verne in 2004 and his Master of Arts in Educational Administration from California State University at Northridge in 2016. We would like to welcome Pete to our district.
Good evening, happy Monday to everybody, and thank you so much for the opportunity for allowing me to be here tonight. School Board, Dr. Mannon. I come to you from the Glendale Unified School District, and since I've been in Torrance, just recently meeting everybody, everybody's been pretty fantastic and pretty welcoming, so I'm super excited to be here. As a teacher, summers are kind of your time to rest and kind of unwind, and this is one of the first summers in the last couple of years that I'm actually excited to get back to work, so I'm looking forward to that, if you guys can believe that. So just want to thank everybody for the opportunity. I spent the last eight years at the middle school. I love this age group and understand the opportunity to transition some of these kids and change some lives, and I'm looking forward to that. So thank you, everybody. I'm truly honored and excited to be here. Thank you.
And
Pete.
before you go,
We got a board member. that
just
wants
wanted to know
question.
how to actually pronounce your last
I'm sorry, Pete Loiza. It's Loiza.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good, hey. Paula Tacamini, Adult Education Principal, effective September 3rd, 2019. Paula began her service in the district in February 2000 as middle school counselor at Kashmir Middle School. She later served as the high school counselor at Torrance High School. Go Tartars. In July 2007, she was hired as an adult school counselor where she currently serves. Paula received her Bachelor of Science in Diuretics and Food Administration from the California State University Long Beach in 1978 and her Master's of Art in Education with an emphasis in pupil personnel services from Azusa Pacific University in 2000. We would like to congratulate Paula.
Mr. Lee, Board of Education, Cabinet, Dr. Mannon, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be part of an administrative team for Torrance Unified School District, and I am super excited to continue the legacy of the excellent adult education program. So thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Michelle Fournier, Principal, South High School, effective July 16th, 2019. Michelle began her service in the district in September of 1990 as an English teacher at South High School. In July of 2009, she was hired as an assistant principal at South High School. She has served as acting principal at South High School since January 22nd, 2019. During her tenure as an administrator at this site, her educational leadership in the areas of professional development, assessment and accountability, intervention in curriculum and instruction has contributed to the academic growth of South High School. Michelle received her Bachelor of Arts in English in 1987 and her Master's of Arts in Educational Administration in 2009. They don't tell us where. We would like to congratulate Michelle.
Long Beach State.
Okay, good, okay.
And then Dominguez. Dr. Lee, Board of Education, Dr. Manning, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm struggling a little bit with a cold, so I apologize for that. I think, and I might be wrong, that I'm the only administrator to go from student teaching to principal at the same high school over 30 years. And I'm a Spartan through and through. My kids went there. I am just so thrilled to be able to take the helm and lead this school forward. I know where we've been. I'm excited to move us forward, and I so appreciate the opportunity to do so. So thank you very much.
Congratulations. Now, all of those people that brought other people with them that are going out to expensive dinners later, you can all leave now if you want to, or you can all stay and watch a boring school board meeting because you're now an administrator and you have to watch.
Well, the
boring-
pressure's on if they leave, though.
Yeah, there we go. Good, okay.
Thanks, Paula. Bye, guys. See ya. That's why it's full of people. They're all with them.
There we go. We cleared the room. These things happen quickly.
Nice.
It's good. Okay, we go to staff presentation and information. Item 8.1, wellness policy survey results in 2018-2019. revised policy for 2019-2020, and revised resource guide 2019-2020.
There she is.
Dr. Stone.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment, Mr. Lee and Board, to again thank Kathleen Cole, our Director for Nutrition Services, as well as our new Assistant Director, Elisa Rubia, in the work that they've done. Kathleen has almost completed her first year in the position, and Alyssa just started. So they're a great team and are really doing a nice job of working with our staff to make sure that healthy and nutritious lunches are provided, that the Nutrition Services Department runs at a surplus, and that they're able to use those dollars to go back into renovating kitchens and making the experience better for kids. And so with that, they're here to present, as they do every July, the updated wellness policy, as well, and some of the changes and things we'd like to do in the coming year.
Pizza coming back?
Happy Friday.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for the warm welcome. Again, my name is Kathleen Cole. I'm the Director of Nutrition Services and the Chair of our Wellness Committee.
And then my name is Elisa Rabaya, and I'm the Assistant Director of Nutrition Services, and I'm also the Co-Chair of the Wellness Committee.
And we're here today to present the annual report of our wellness policy for the 2018-19 school year. This is a mandatory report that we are required to present to the Board of Education and to the superintendent.
The Wellness Committee, there you go. The Wellness Committee meets 4 times a year, and it's comprised of 16 active members, comprising of board members. Thank you, Terry. We also have principals, assistant principals, PTA presidents, and dairy council, and many more. Our committee's goal is to provide school environments that promote and protect children's health, well-being, and ability to learn by supporting healthy eating and physical activity. Through focusing on these areas, we hope to improve student health, increase students' capacity to learn, reduce absenteeism, and improve cognitive functions such as mental alertness. Our schools play a critical role in promoting health and safe behaviors for our students. As a committee, we created a new resource guide as well as an updated wellness policy. We continue to share the resource guide and the wellness policy with various groups at the school sites.
So under the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2018, the federal government actually reauthorized child nutrition programs to revamp their local wellness policies. So the objectives were to enhance local wellness policy requirements, strengthen implementation and assessment of the policies, and expand public input in the development and reporting. So this is our 5th year gathering information from the public through our Google surveys. And the purpose of this evaluation is to determine if the district is meeting the wellness goals set forth in the TUSD wellness policy, and to determine particular strengths and weaknesses, things that we could work on for the next school year. So there were 4 surveys that went out, and we received a total of 3,375 responses in total. 95.3% were meets, exceeds expectations. And the 4 different groups that we sent surveys out to were school sites, health services, student council, ASB, parents, and volunteers. And the percentages next show how the percentage of participation in each group.
As you can see here, all 30 of our schools have participated and have been represented in each of these surveys in the last 3 years. Our goal, of course, is 100% participation from each of the schools, and we hope to continue this trend of participation in the future surveys as well.
So now we are going to highlight some of the main areas of opportunity, and we will finish with our areas of success. In the nutrition category, we found that both students and school sites feel like more nutrition education is needed in the school curriculum. 18.3% of students and 10.7% of school sites said need improvement.
Our next area of opportunity is also in nutrition and in the marketing of non-compliant foods. We found it interesting that 10.2% of students felt that there needs to be improvement with marketing of non-compliant foods, while the staff at the school sites believe no improvement is needed in this area. This makes us think that students are being marketed to and school staff are not aware, and this is definitely something that we are looking to address with the Wellness Committee next year.
Can I ask you a quick question before we move on?
Sure.
That's the second slide on which the students said that at about 30%, 35%, 40%, that it exceeds the standard. That's interesting. So their perception is quite different.
Yeah, there's a discrepancy that we're seeing in what the students view and what the sites
Yeah.
actually view.
Huh.
They're hungry.
We also found that 15.6% of students do not feel that healthy lifestyles are promoted, although school sites feel as they do. So there's another discrepancy. So this raises the question, is there a disconnect? And is our health promotion at the school sites not effective, or is it just not present?
Okay, and then this slide shows parents assessing the parent and volunteer group activities. So the survey shows that parents and volunteers feel that parent groups need improvement in promoting health, wellness in their programs, fundraisers, and school-related functions. This past year, we revamped the Wellness Resource Guide to incorporate more fundraiser ideas, food safety tips, healthy classroom celebrations, and more. So we're hoping that these improvements in the resource guide can help parent groups in delivering the message of health and wellness in the activities that they present.
As far as awareness of the wellness policy, we found that all district health staff are aware, and most school sites, parents, and volunteers are aware. However, if you look at the students category, it's actually less than 50%. It's about 47% were aware of the policy. So something that we're looking into doing next year is having more student involvement, participation on our committee, whether it's us coming to them or maybe scheduling outside school hours, something to get them to give us feedback on what could work for them and how we can portray the best messages in the schools.
Okay, and then now on to our areas of success. So success is defined as greater than or equal to 90% of those surveyed reporting meets or exceeds expectations. So when looking at nutrition, success was in the following. So foods and beverages sold from midnight to 1/2 hour after the school day are healthy. Compliance of food safety and sanitation, and classroom celebrations are limited to 4 per year. In the area of wellness, success was found in the following. Groups felt that opportunities for physical activity are provided, physical education staff are well prepared, and teachers and staff model healthy behaviors. And then lastly, in terms of safety, success was found in these areas: promotion of safety on campus and promotion of a drug and substance-free environment.
So now that we have all this information, we would like to meet with our committee to go over goals for the next school year. I want to make note that everyone is welcome to come to our upcoming meeting dates. There are on Thursdays, as you can see, in the Classified Conference Center from 9:30 to 11 o'clock. Again, everyone is welcome. The more people we have, the more power we have as a committee, the more impactful we can be. So please join. All the information's there. And if you have any other questions on the results, a more thorough analysis is on our TUSD website. And that actually sums it up. We would like to thank all of you for your time and commitment to wellness in the schools. Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, Mr. Gerson.
A couple of questions. My first question was, in the parents and volunteers, how were they selected, and how did you choose to communicate and administer your survey?
So we actually sent it to all PTA presidents, who then distributed it out to all parents and volunteers. We did the survey through Google Surveys, and so this is our 5th year of doing that.
And could you tell how well did the presidents get it out to their communities?
We had 100% participation at all 30 schools, so that means at least one PTA president had filled out one person from each school had filled out the survey. So 100% participation.
Interesting. Just so you know, I'm going to be going back to my PTA president and asking why I didn't see it.
Oh, good, please do.
But do you guys also have conversations about the payment management system and how that's rolled out with students? and
For like
parents?
meal charge policy? Or-
Yeah, as far as students charging their food, as far as parents paying when they're in a red balance, they're...
Yes, we've talked about it, and unfortunately, the best that we can do is portray our wellness policy at the beginning of the school year. Something that we're doing is high schools are not allowed to charge into the negative, middle schools are allowed to charge up to negative $5, and elementary are not, or can charge unlimited amounts. So that negative debt actually then accrues over the year, and we send out a lot of notifications to parents and emails and phone calls and kind of cover all grounds that we can to get payment back to our system so the general fund doesn't take a hit for all the negative balances. So that's something that our nutrition department actually kind of works together. We have brought it to the committee, we've gotten some feedback, but as of now, that's what we've come to for a solution.
In the area of promoting a healthy lifestyle, how do you currently do that for students? Because I wasn't surprised
Right.
when you said, almost 50% of students say we're not doing this. How, I'm sorry?
They don't, she said.
Oh, I was just wondering there's two of them. There's the school promotion of healthy lifestyle, 15.6% of students said needs improvement. But I was wondering at what part, how do you contribute to the promotion of the healthy lifestyle? And then the other part where, do they know that we even have a wellness policy?
So something that we do is Healthy Ever After, which is actually run by Torrance Memorial, and it's something that we bring to the school sites, and we're actually going to be hopefully meeting with Edon Kim soon, he doesn't know this, to maybe discuss at the middle school, high school level, how we can incorporate nutrition education. So in that aspect, we are trying to promote wellness and nutrition and healthy snacks and ideas there. Now, from a teacher's perspective, we're trying to promote being healthy role models. So something that we did create as a committee is healthy meeting snack ideas and entree, breakfast, lunch snack ideas during meetings, because if you have a healthy meal, it fuels your brain, makes you more productive, you're not lethargic. So we give a list of really cool ideas for parents and teachers and all staff to be a good role model for our students. So we're hoping in that aspect, kids can see that and hopefully the perception can change.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Anybody else?
Mrs. Liu?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was great looking slides.
Oh,
and-
thank you.
Yes, and I have two questions. First one is in terms of safety in the drug and substance-free environments. Are we doing much specifically on the increased rate of vaping among students?
That actually is a wellness policy question. So this was our first year getting that question out there. So if anyone's interested in actually seeing the results of that, you can look online. But we are finding that vaping is a problem, and it is happening, especially in the high school level. It is also present in the middle school level. So we just sent out the results this year because we've seen it. And so as a committee, we wanted to get actual results from what the perception of the students is, as well as the teachers and faculty, and we are seeing some discrepancies there as well, so that's something that we'll address next year.
And Mrs. Liu, if I may, I believe that also that's something that through John Pearson, Student Services, that in working with the schools, that's being addressed as well, and making sure that information's provided for parents and staff members as well as students, but they can address that.
Okay, great, thank you. And my second question is, in terms of qualifications for PE teachers, I think in various documents that we have, it says that the physical education staff are well prepared. Do you mind telling us saying here at this hearing, at this meeting, that like how well prepared they are? Are they employees of ours, or are they?
Yes, so we're referring to employees in the district, and then there's a specific amount of time that each student is required to, I think, participate in PE. Someone else might answer better to that than I would, but we do have it laid out in our wellness policy as well.
Yeah, and this is, that all our teachers meet requirements for California credentialing, that students have adequate number, the correct number of minutes of PE each week for elementary and middle school, and high school students obviously meet the number of credits toward high school graduation for physical education.
That's great, especially for high school, that's wonderful. But how about, are we doing regular teachers as PE teachers, or are they specifically trained? in physical education? 'Cause I think some document here said that they're specifically trained for it.
So all of our teachers have credentials at teaching what they're being asked to teach. So in the state of California, grades 7 through 12 require a single subject in physical education. So all
And
7th through 12th grade teachers have a credential in physical education. In grades K-6, they have a multiple subject credential, and their exams and their training that they do in their credential program provide them the authorization to teach any subject area that they teach, be it art, music, PE, science, social studies, English, math. So K-6 teachers have a multiple subject credential versus a
And that
single.
includes PE.
That includes PE, theater arts, it includes every single subject. It's only beginning in grade 7 that they have specialized credential that's called single subject, where it's specific to one subject area.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, wait, before you go.
Yeah, wait a minute, Mrs. Reagan.
I just wanted to give a shout out to your wellness resource guide, just because I know how it's evolved. And it has grown into a 42-page booklet with a huge number of resources and informational sheets and outlines and charts about what is permitted and what's not. And in fact, I remember when there was a single healthy dessert for them to purchase on campus during the day for a celebration. And now there's a list of 20-some that are within our standards. So you really are working hard to try to make healthier things available for our students and for students and parents to share at the campuses when they're there doing celebrations. So thank you for doing that. And the resource guide is accessible online for everyone, so they
Yes.
can get to it.
Yeah, so
You
we'll
want-
be updating it once everything's board approved tomorrow morning. So the official documents will be ready tomorrow.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so
Great.
much. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Have a lovely summer. Okay, good. On to 8.2, district and school safety presentation. Dr. Stowe? Or Dr. Manning?
Oh, Dr. Manning.
Wow, this is rare.
Can you flip to the next one for me, Katie? Keep
There's
going.
somebody who has it. Oh, you have it, George.
Oh, you don't have it? Do it.
We feel so special.
No, I went the first slide. There you go. So I wanted to give a brief history about this. Many of you probably know the information I'm going to say, but it's important to know where we have gone over the last few years. First, you would not see those items up there had it not been for the community in Measure T voting for approval. The district simply, within its normal budget process, would not have had the funding to do those things that are up there right now. So going back 2014, the simplest thing that we could do, which is not up there, was 1, 2, 3. It's a simple latch. Actually, Dr. Stabler found it by a company. We were the first clients of the company. The Daily Breeze actually wrote an article about it because this started this gentleman's company. And then people started buying his product all over the country. And it did become a standard. But 1, 2, 3 is simple. It allowed teachers to keep their door locked. It's a latch which goes out, which you push, and it just simply goes out so that the door doesn't actually lock, which leaves a little space. And then during the day, someone can pull the door, come in, but the door remains actually locked. And then if there's a lockdown or some disturbance, all you have to do is flip it. The door is locked from the outside, and you move on with that. From that point, we did have a large district committee of all of our stakeholder groups. Included on that committee was a security consultant, the Torrance Police Department. We also had structural engineer. Balfour Beatty was a part of that, along with the other technical people and our stakeholders to talk about what is it we really need to have in the district in terms of physical, and I like to use the words obstacle or barriers for people coming onto a campus. Another easy one for us, and we started it, which was EduLink. That has now shifted to Swift K-12, but EduLink provided us for the first time of actually being able to communicate directly with parents when we had an alert situation, and we could do that via email or text that went out. That was the first time we were actually able to do that in the district. That morphed out so that, and I'll remind Mrs. Reagans and Mr. Lee of this, so that we actually perfected that down to where we could send out to only certain groups of students and parents when we had it. The example that I like to give where it really worked and assisted us was a problem we had at West High School at 4 a.m. in the morning. The police were on the campus. They did not want the campus open, but we knew it would open at some point. And who our concern was for kids who had 0 period classes. So working with Tammy, they were able to actually go in and only send the alert to 0 period parents to say, don't send your kids at the regular time with that. So we have that capability. Swift K-12 has that capability so that we can choose whatever group of students we might need to choose and parents and alert them. So that was a real eye-opener for us. So one of the first things that all of the security people, consultants, police department, and now me, say when we do webinars is that the best practice is replace all of your old fencing, put in new fencing, because you as a school have to secure your perimeters. Now, you know how our schools operate and where we have gone with that, but I will tell you one of the questions that I certainly have gotten since October were from districts, because of the webinar I did in October on safety and security. They do not have that. I mean, I was surprised by many districts who called me personally to say, well, our schools don't have that. How do we do that? You know, how do we work with parents to actually say, we need this? And, you know, it's real easy when you talk to security and police people, you do need that. From that and discussion on the committee, we looked at video surveillance. The piece on the video surveillance for our schools is that the security expert we had, along with the Torrance Police Department, went to every one of our school sites. They also pulled data back from where there were any incidents, not just school incidents, but any incidents, including community incidents on a school site after the school day would be over, and that's what guided the placement of those cameras on the school sites. Gil, how many we have now? 1,400 cameras out there, and the board members also got a show one night with Sony cameras. One of the engineers did it, where it was dark outside, but the Sony camera had almost perfect pictures with no light, and that is
walking in and out of HG Grill.
that's right. So it was that was a good presentation. That was the next piece we put in. If you'll notice, all these are sequential in how we did this. One-point access, you guys all know what one-point access is. Once school day starts, there's only one point into a school site. The rest of those are locked down. We ran that pilot program at CAR for almost a year. so that we could see any of the issues, and you always have issues when we implement, and Gil did a good job of watching that, and of course, I always joke when I say this, that's one of the, we found out right away that kindergartners like to push the button on the gates. That's something they really enjoy. And finally, we've talked about this, and now it is implementation time for the Raptor system. The board has discussed it. Gil is starting the rollout for the Raptor system this fall, and will be in place and working, and we thought that was a normal sequential piece to put into place. Now, John Pearson, who is our Director of Student Services, is going to speak in just a moment, but I want to make a couple of comments before John does speak. All of these items, again, are obstacles or barriers for someone and communication devices on our school site. We should always remember that safety and security is work that is to be done every day. There will be, these are standard practice today, there will be other standard practices that come in the safety and security business, and we need to be aware of what those are and will they work in our system, quite frankly. But that's number one. Number two is probably the most important piece, which is not up there, is information. And one of the things that we started in the district, over a year ago was see something, say something. Now, all of you are aware that we have had non-credible threats on school sites, and the way that that information is gathered, for the most part, is that students or parents have noticed us that they did see something. Every one of those incidents are run down by our own staff and also by the Torrance Police Department. I am happy to say they were non-credible over this past year. But the point is, our students and our parents are becoming vigilant. We have to be vigilant every day, not just every other day or when we think about it. You have to be vigilant every day. And if you talk to any of the, quote, experts on school safety, they will tell you that's the most important thing. That if you have prior information about a threat, and if it is credible, to be able to act to stop it prior to the time that it actually begins. Now, I will say we've had an excellent relationship with the Torrance Police Department. They have not only played a role when we call them, they've called us when something has appeared online somewhere, they've heard something, they call us, we work with them. I will also say that this is one of the few communities where our police department and fire department has actual real-time ability to look at our videos. So from the command center, if something was going on at one of our school sites, they can pull any of our cameras up, and they can see it real time in terms of what is going on. Now, that makes a big difference for them in terms of how they react and their action time, because they're not hunting down a whole campus, for example. They know where they're going on that campus. So as I said, these should all be viewed as basically obstacles or communication devices that we have put in place. But again, information is the key piece in all of this. And the second piece that goes along with that is training and providing training. And with that, Mr. Pearson's going to talk about training.
Mrs. Reagan has a question.
I just have a
Ms.
quick
Reagan.
question, Dr. Manning. You didn't mention what the Raptor system is, just a really quick thumbnail.
Oh, okay, thank you. I skipped it because I knew we had discussed it
Yeah, I
before.
know, we know, but, yeah.
The
For the
Raptor.
thousands of people out there.
Yeah.
At least it does.
Really? Okay.
He said
At least a dozen, yeah. The Raptor system is a system that has been in several schools in the state actually in the nation, I think now. We have piloted for 2 years, Gil, at Hickory. Yes. What this does, when a person comes on the campus and they go through the office, you have a scanner that you put your driver's license in, and it scans to ensure that this person is not on Megan's list. There are also the federal databases that it scans, and then it prints you a visitor pass with the date, time, and where you are going on that school site. So we want to reach a point, and I think Mr. Marr has been really good at pointing this out to school sites, is we want to reach a point where when you see somebody on the campus, they either have a badge because they're a visitor, or they're wearing one of our official TUSD badges. It also will scan those so that in the event that we had some sort of a disaster, we know where our people are, meaning technology people, techs who are out on the school site, or M&O folks who are out on the school site. We will know what school site they actually are present in.
So
when
that's
we
going to
have
be a
that.
policy.
Pardon?
That's going to be a policy that we require.
Yeah, it's all part of the Raptor system, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pearson.
Sure. All right. Tough act to follow. Thank you, Dr. Mannon. Thank you, President Lee, members of the board and cabinet for this opportunity to present information on how we do our best to keep our students and staff safe here in the Torrance Unified School District. We know that in order to best implement anything, there needs to be a plan with multiple opportunities for stakeholders to view and contribute. The California Department of Education has provided school districts a template to use in developing effective school safety plans. These comprehensive plans not only have specific procedures on how to evacuate and shelter in place, for example, but also information on school culture and climate. Contents of the plan also includes, no, we're good right here. We're going to stay here for a little bit. Contents of the plan also include specific board policies on school safety, procedures for safe ingress and egress from school, and bullying prevention policies. School safety teams are asked to review relevant discipline data and develop goals to ensure all students are safe and supported while on campus. So it's not just protocol, but it's also about school culture. To assist sites in developing these effective school safety plans, we've met with the Torrance Police Department and Torrance Fire Department multiple times over the past couple of years to review and discuss our emergency preparedness protocol. Education code requires that they are consulted and given the opportunity to provide feedback before plans are submitted to the school board for approval. We have attended numerous trainings together and have learned how other districts are responding to emergency situations, and I'm happy to share that our protocol is consistent with best practices that have been presented during these trainings. Lastly, our school site council will review, provide feedback, and approve the plans before submitting them to the school board in February. In order to ensure the safety of our students and staff on campus while at school, TUSD has hired, I'm going to actually go back for a second. TUSD has hired a 5-hour security staff for each middle school and an average of 4.5 security staff for each high school. Our 4 SORs are sworn Torrance police officers working directly with our schools. Each school resource officer is assigned to support all schools in each of the respective 4 quadrants. To ensure clear communication, we do 4 radio checks per year. Each school has a radio and calls into the district office to ensure the equipment is working properly. To provide updated information and resources to sites, we schedule district-wide emergency preparedness meetings 3 times per year. This past year, the Red Cross and members of Harbor UCLA presented to site representatives on their specific programs. We participate in the Great California Shakeout each year on the 3rd Thursday of October. All TUSD schools practice drop, cover, hold on protocol. To support sites when there's a possible threat, we have trained our site administration and counselors this past year on a threat assessment protocol. This is a step-by-step guide for site administrators and school counselors, and it distinguishes between harm to self versus harm to others, and whether or not the threat is substantive or transient. Counselors determine whether or not the threat is a low risk or a moderate to high risk, and then based on their assessment, they can call the SRO and the PMRT if it's determined to be a moderate to high risk situation. So I know it's really hard to see, but I think you guys were emailed this earlier in the year. But to help sites, I created this flow chart to simplify yet distinguish the respective elements of the school safety plan. If there's an emergency situation, we basically need to determine whether to stay inside or to evacuate. You'll see the flow chart, how the different events are separated accordingly. For evacuation, it's pretty specific and pretty simple. For example, if there's a fire, the alarm goes out, smoke detectors go off, we evacuate. If it's an earthquake, we feel the shaking, the rumbling, we drop, cover, we hold on, and we evacuate. For staying inside, you can see it's either going to be a shelter-in-place situation, a lockdown situation, or as Dr. Mannon talked about earlier, an active shooter situation, which we hope we never have to deal with. Shelter-in-place drills are done 3 times per year and coincide when the Torrance refinery tests their alarm. We take an all-hazards approach with an air quality alert or chemical release and initiate a shelter-in-place protocol. Teachers will close windows, tape or seal doors, and wait for instructions. To ensure that we are in line with the best practices, we have met with the Torrance Fire Department multiple times over the past year to review our shelter-in-place protocol and assess our school safety plans. And I am happy to report that Deputy Chief Dumais of the Torrance Fire Department, also our Golden Apple Award winner this year, confirms that Torrance Unified School District schools have current plans that are in place, which are in line with best practices as outlined by the state of California for shelter-in-place. Also, we have visited every TUSD school to check ventilation systems and assess the quality of seal around windows in every classroom. Our Director of Facilities and Operations confirms that almost all windows have a rubber or fiber seal on the frames and are in good shape with regard to their ability to keep elements out of the building. For a lockdown situation, students get inside, close and lock doors, turn off lights, stay quiet, and wait for instructions. This occurs when there's a dangerous person in the area. Typically, TPD will notify us to go on lockdown, and our principals will respond accordingly. And then finally, our active shooter protocol is for the extreme situation of a person being on campus shooting a firearm. Torrance Police Department Sergeant Jason Masalkas and SRO Daryl Tatum have been great in reviewing and guiding us in developing our protocol, which is evade, barricade, and distract, to ensure that we are in line with the best practices. He has participated in both of them actually have participated in TUSD trainings and presented to administration and staff. Sites drill these specific protocols and procedures numerous times during the year to ensure that all have an understanding and are able to execute in case of emergency. So in order to stay on top of these new topics, issues, as Dr. Manning mentioned, we always have to look forward and to research new ideas to best ensure the safety of our students. I've attended numerous conferences and workshops throughout the year, including the Safe School Conference, which is actually this week. It's this week on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Raptor, I mentioned Raptor here because they're a big sponsor of the event and do a wonderful job at promoting their product, and it is an exceptional product. I attended the Safe Schools Summit with Officer Tatum last year, which focused on how to respond during an active shooter event. LACO offers numerous trainings as well. Last year, the REMS, which stands for Readiness and Emergency Management for Schools, was most impactful. The webpage has many free resources, including tabletop exercises sites can use with their safety teams to practice different scenarios. Many of the trainings I attended in 2017-18 was specific on how to respond to an active shooter situation. So I think we've all heard of Run, Hide, Fight before. I also attended one, the acronym is ALICE, which stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, Evacuate. That was actually a 2-day training where they had us on a school site campus, sitting in a classroom, sitting in an auditorium, in a passing period, and going through different scenarios and how to best respond. There's also one that presented an organization called HERO, which stands for Hide, Escape, Run, Overcome. At the end of the day, it all comes down pretty much to the same thing. And that's, there's a lot of companies out there promoting their idea, but ultimately what we decided in collaboration with Torrance Police Department was evade, barricade, and distract. Sites were trained at the beginning of this past school year, and performed their own active shooter drills this past fall. In addition, 5 years ago, in partnership with TPD, we participated in a full-scale active shooter drill at Torrance High School, where Torrance Police Department came onto campus and and they showed us how they would respond in case of an active shooter event at Torrance High School, how they would respond. They had the SWAT cars coming in, they had the pellet guns, they were running through campus, and we had a lot of TUSD staff members actually participate in the drill as well. Looking into this upcoming school year, one of our goals is to bring consistency between school sites with regard to our alarm signals. This will include the training of all district staff, students, and others on the school site of these protocols. For example, one long bell will direct students to evacuate. 3 short bells will direct students to get inside. After students are inside, administration or staff can direct students and teachers through an all-call system. All schools actually have a system where an announcement can come through the speaker of their classroom telephone. In conclusion, I am confident that in our plans, processes, and believe our staff and students will be well prepared just in case. Again, student safety is a top priority, and we are committed to doing all we can to ensure the safety of our TUSD students and staff. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Mrs. Reagans.
Yeah, I think you somewhat addressed it in almost the last things that you said, which had to do with the signaling of the classrooms as to when and whether something needs to happen. And that's what you were talking about with in terms of using the PA, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am.
That's how that will happen?
We understand that it's really important that all schools have the same alarm signals and are going to know to respond in the same way. So when they're at elementary school, when they're moving to middle school, they understand that the alarm system and the bell systems mean the same thing when you're going from elementary to middle to high. So it's important that we have that consistency between sites, identify what those signals will be, and make sure that all school site staff and students understand what these bells mean.
Okay, so that involves informing the students, but there are often events where parents are also on campus. How will we also inform the parents as to what those signals might mean? Because they might be there when it happens.
That's a great question. I think what will happen is school site principals will then communicate directly through their PTA to their parent population to let them know what these bells mean.
Okay, so that's a mechanism we need to sort out and create some training there perhaps too.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gerson.
First, thank you. I know we had some conversations, Dr. Mannon, about some of that confusion. I know Dr. Crumpy, and you've also discussed it on how getting our principals, who are typically our incident commanders, if you will, on their sites, all on the same page and giving the same instructions. And so thank you for the flow chart and making those things we talked about clear. So first I want to start with a compliment, because Torrance Police Department has been so incredibly helpful. I know I went 4 years in a row to their active shooter training for teachers, and it got more and more intense each year. And all the school resource officers I've worked with over the years who are so incredibly, passionate and brave, and that even if they're not a two-man tactical team, which they're supposed to be, they would still go in single man and draw fire to protect us and our kids, which is amazing. Having said that, I did want the people to know that that there are 4 SROs in the city of Torrance, and yes, they're divided into quadrants, but they're not Torrance Unified specifically assigned. They're assigned to a quadrant which includes our schools and any other private schools and other educational entities within the city. So people don't think that they're only dedicated to us. So I wanted to point that out. But thank you very much for all the work you've done in your presentation.
Appreciate your support.
Mrs. Liu?
My lights don't. Actually, Ms. Reagan's very nicely asked my question in terms of the different signals. Where there is a fire, an active shooter, or chemical spill. So that's what I was concerned about. And actually, about 5 years ago or so, 4.5 years ago, I was at a middle school in the cafeteria teaching adventures in art. The alarm went off, and I had no idea what that meant. And I understand what you said on the PA system. you guys would be announcing that, because I didn't have any at the time,
Yeah.
I don't believe.
Yeah, I mean, so it's important that we get that information to school site and to emphasize the importance of communicating that to anybody who's on campus. So whether it's a substitute teacher and they're given their subfolder, and in that subfolder, there's information that says long bell equals evacuate, 3 short bells equal stay inside, something that they can refer to when it's a simple fire alarm goes off, we know to leave. If there's an earthquake, you'll feel it,
Yeah.
right? We'll leave. So for the other things where it's shelter-in-place active shooter, there's going to be potentially the need to make an announcement. And at that time, principals will be instructed to get on the intercom, to make that instruction, to give that instruction to staff, whether it's an active shooter, there's an active shooter on campus, please initiate active shooter protocol. And teachers and students know to evade, barricade, based on where they are, or distract. And so it'll be the leadership, school leadership, to communicate that to all members, all folks who are on campus, whether it be a substitute teacher, a special program that's coming on, students, parents volunteering in the classroom, to make sure that that communication is accurately communicated.
And the communication is through the PA system, you said, right?
Yes, so
And there's one in the cafeteria, too, of the schools, do you know?
I assume that there's a PA system or an ability for, whether it's there's a phone, yeah. So all rooms have phones which have this speaker system, is my understanding.
Okay, that's good. Well, in terms of recent shootings and an increasing number of school shootings, I've been very concerned over how in the news when it's mentioned that a school has had a shooting, it's like, oh, okay. It's not the norm. It should not be the normal. It's our reaction, the public's reaction to it is now very different, almost nonchalant. It's not like the Columbine shootings way back, where we all were concerned about it. And so I'm very glad to hear about how we have this wonderful infrastructure that helps with, that deters and helps with deterring any potential shooters.
And if I may,
Yes, please.
Reemphasize what Dr. Mannon discussed earlier. The See Something, Say Something
Yes.
was a large part of our active shooter training in the fall. And that's exactly what we hear at all these trainings, is that 9 times out of 10, somebody knows. The student has mentioned it to a friend, a family member, so the importance of see something, say something, and make sure that that ability to communicate with the school is in place so that we can respond accordingly. And what we're seeing is that students are listening and they're acting accordingly, which is great, because that's the prevention part of it, which is more important. And then also the other aspect of it is school culture and climate. When we're talking about students who may be in crisis, what supports can we give them so it never gets to the point where we're reacting? What can we do preventatively to provide supports and resources to those students who may be struggling emotionally, socially? Instead of taking that next step forward, there's supports, and we can surround that student with enough help so that they know not to take that step.
Okay, that's great. So after a different subtopic, I asked the other ladies earlier, cards who are in charge of the health and wellness program. I'm concerned about vaping because I did not quite know what they looked like before, and I understand that it's actually permeated through to the middle school a lot, and I've been shown not that it's might even go down to elementary school. There's been some incidences of that. What particularly are we doing about that? I mean, I think I have a lot of complaints about students, parents complaining from students that they are just afraid to use the bathroom now. They just, not afraid, but they just don't use the bathroom.
Yeah.
And sometimes within the classroom, they're doing such things. What are we doing about that?
It's a great question, and I had to go check my notes because we actually held 2 focus groups last year specific to how to address the vaping issue in Torrance Unified School District. And two of those, and in those groups, we had a couple parents, a couple teachers, site administration, myself, TPD was there, and we had some community-based organizations such as the Thelma McMillan Center, and Jen Harris is with the, what do you remember? Behavioral Health Services participate in the focus group. And we met twice to discuss, to look at data, the discipline data, to see district-wide where, you know, what does the data tell us with regard to vaping? Is it just a rumor, or is it real? And what we notice is that it's real, and there is a situation, specifically, at least the year before, was at the high schools. And so what can we do to help address this issue of vaping on campus? And we came up with a few different solutions. One was more security. So I've recently written a grant through the tobacco, through the state of California to hopefully add security guard to every school campus. But then also there's an education piece that was really important, and also a communication piece, education and communication. Education to students and parents about what vaping is, the dangers of vaping, but then also really tap into the student voice and see if we can make it where students are saying it's not cool to vape on campus, and where it's vaping, you know, where it's not going to be the cool thing to do in the corner. It's going to be we don't want to go there. And so, what can the students do collectively to create a message and create a school culture where that's not going to be accepted at school? And so, those are the three areas that we're really focusing on moving forward into the next year: is increased security, but then also the communication, the education piece on campus coming from kids, but then also the parent outreach to inform parents about what's going on campus, so they're aware. They know what a vape looks like. They can look for signs or warning signs, you know, and things of that nature. So that's something that we'll be focusing on moving into next year as well.
Thank you very much. That was beyond reasonable. I think that sounds really great. I'm glad that those programs are in place.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Pearson?
No, sir.
Well, that's good. Good. Thank you very much. Good presentation. Next would be the Strategic Communication Initiative, Board Update Number 1, Dr. Stowe.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, members of the board. As you recall, back in earlier this year, in March, you authorized us to enter a contract with Clifford Moss. They're a strategic communications firm based in Oakland. And since then, we've been working with them very closely. And so I'd like to introduce tonight Bonnie Moss from Clifford Moss and Laura Crotty from Clifford Moss as well. And we had some sessions with them here. I know they've spoken with all of you. They met with cabinet, and so Bonnie will take us through that. In addition, Bonnie will introduce Dr. Tim McClarney with True North Research. And Tim is the one who did the community polling and led that, and so he's going to share the data that they found. And so,
I just want to add a piece. Some of you know Dr. McClarney from doing polling for us in 2008 and 2014 involving measures Y and Z, T, and U. So Dr. McClarney actually has a history with us on some of these pieces.
with that, Bonnie, you're on.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much, President Lee and members of the board. It's good to see you all. We've talked on the phone. I'm Bonnie Moss with Clifford Moss, and really happy to be here tonight in our first board update. We're calling it Board Update Number 1 on the Strategic Communications Initiative. And so our agenda tonight is we're just going to share a friendly reminder about the goal, current status of the project, and mostly dedicate our time tonight to Dr. McClarney's research, the public opinion poll of voters in the district. And then we plan to come back in August and share the highlights of our draft plan, which will be the blueprint that we're focusing on to take us through the next school year to focus on strategic communications. So you all have in front of you our tried and true one-pager that is the simplest definition of the initiative. I want to actually thank all of you on the board for taking the step to authorize this project. Many districts throughout the state would just say, hey, we're just going to keep trying, but not take the time out to really give this effort the attention it deserves. So, and I can assure you, we are paying lots of attention to your school district and the topic of communications. I will say that right now we're at the assessment phase. We started, actually we started with you, the board, and talking with each one of you about what you're seeing, what's working, what's not. And if you remember those conversations, we've been replicating those with many different types of stakeholders throughout the district, from the cabinet to the management team, to site leaders, to focus groups of parents, teachers, classified staff, and we're building a panel, a blue ribbon advisory panel to be an extra sounding board all the way through this process. So on the chart above, you can see some of the tools that we're using to help guide us in the process so that we're really listening all the way through. And I can tell you that we're with you for about a year, and we're in the summer right now. So I can absolutely assure you that our process is to listen all the way through, as we are also taking what we learn and synthesizing that into a small but effective set of core strategies. We will get to that in August. Happy to report that we're over 1,000 contacts, and we're actually, you'll remember we asked you a series of questions. We've done the same with others. So we now have literally hundreds of touches of pieces of input already that we're processing and assimilating into what are people really saying about the process of communications. And we will get back to you at a future meeting, a future board update with that information and what we're learning and what therefore we think that should allow us to recommend to you all. But tonight, what's great about tonight is that we are going to turn to our colleague and wonderful friend, Dr. Tim McClarney, to share his research about what I think is a very, very important tool. Thank you so much, board, for saying yes to this public opinion survey, because it's really got some juicy information for us to be able to make good decisions going forward to help improve communications here in the district. So Dr. McClarney.
Thank you, Bonnie. Good evening, President Lee, members of the board. I'm Tim McClarney, president of True North, and we're a firm that for about 20 years now has specialized in working with school districts and cities and other types of public agencies in doing surveys to help them develop a statistically reliable understanding of the communities and the customers that they serve. You know, it's interesting, when I got the call to work on this study, it's nice because we do a lot of different types of studies for different agencies, but when it comes to schools, for the most part, we get the call. It's usually about a bond measure, right, or it's about a parcel tax, and we enjoy those types of studies, don't get me wrong, but it was fun to sink my teeth into some things a little different than what most schools are going to invest in, which was learning more about how do you view us as a public agency, how do you view how we communicate with you, the community, where are we doing well, where can we improve. And so I'm pleased to be able to present back to you tonight some of the information from that study. And as I go through this presentation, I welcome questions from the board as I go or at the end, whichever is your preference. So to begin, before we talk about the results, it's helpful to take a moment to sort of just talk a little bit about the purpose of the study or why we went about doing this research, as well as the methodology or the how we went about doing the study. You know, this was really designed to help inform your strategic communications initiative, right? If you are setting out to make perhaps some changes in how you communicate and engage with your community, the best place to start with that in part is to go out and get a good understanding of how your community views you on those dimensions. And so With that, you'll see in the survey itself, it proceeds in a number of stages. We sort of start out, as I'll present in the results, talking a bit about how they view your schools, right? Because we want to get that view first before we then transition to how they view the district as a public agency, right? And how they view the district's communications and engagement practices. And ultimately being a little forward-looking, what types of, there's lots of ways that you can communicate with residents these days. It's no longer where it was 10 years ago, right? Where everybody sort of always went to the same newspapers and the same few information channels that are out there. There's just an explosion of different ways that you can get information. And so we wanted to use the survey to get a sense from what ways that the public would view most effective for the district to communicate with them. So in terms of the methodology or how we went about conducting the study, conducted in late May to June of this year, and we set out with a goal of interviewing 400 individuals who are registered to vote in the community, and we use what's called a stratified and clustered random sample for that. I can get into the details of that if you like, but suffice it to say at the end of that process, we are assured that we have a sample that is in fact representative of that voter universe in your community. I said we set out to do 400. We wound up coming back with 804. And the reason for that is we had to make some reasonable assumptions about what the productivity would be, and when we were sending out invitations, and it turned out the response rate was about double what we had sort of assumed heading into this. So that's great. No extra charge, right? You got double your sample with no extra charge. But one of the nice properties of that is, and as you'll see here in tonight's presentation, we take the time not only to show how the results are pan out across the community as a whole, but also we dig into different subgroups of folks based on how long they've lived here. Do they have children in your schools? What areas of the city they live in, et cetera. And so when you break that sample down and you start looking at those subgroups, it's nice to have this larger sample size because it improves your overall reliability at those subgroup levels. The overall margin of error for the study is about plus or minus 3.4%. What that means is we can be 95% confident that the results we'll talk about tonight are within 3.4% of what you would have found had you spoken with all of your registered voters. Okay, so on to the results. We open up with a few warm-up questions a bit, and this first one was for each one of the areas you see shown at the bottom of those bars. So the state of California, Los Angeles County, City of Torrance, and Torrance Unified School District, we simply ask folks to say, hey, generally speaking, do you think things are headed in the right direction or the wrong direction, right? And what's interesting as you look at the results, it's very clear that voters are able to distinguish between what's happening statewide and what's happening in the county versus what's happening in their community. For the state of California, which is the far left bar, you see the majority of voters think things are heading in the wrong direction, 52%. You had about 30% who felt it was heading in the right direction, and the rest uncertain. Los Angeles County fared a bit worse. You had 51% who felt things were really heading in the wrong direction. You had about 20% who felt it was in the right direction, and the remainder being uncertain. When you get to the city of Torrance and their local community, things turn around, right? Now you've got 47% saying the right direction, 24% the wrong direction, and a large unsure. And then to the far right is Torrance Unified School District. And what you see here, first and foremost, is you see the gray area up there is actually larger for the district than it is any of these others. So there's a big group of registered voters out there who don't quite know enough about what's going on in the district to be able to venture an answer one way or the other. Among those who do have an answer, however, it's about 2-to-1 right direction, wrong direction, right? And so for those who have enough information to form an opinion, 2/3 of them think you're going in the right direction. But that gray box up there is something that we would want to obviously fill in over time and help them understand more about the district and the good work that you're doing. So that last slide was everybody, all in one group, right? And so what we've done here is for the rating of Torrance Unified School District, we started to about break it down across some subgroups. And at the bottom, you see the subgroup titles. So they kind of are grouped into 4 areas. So on the far left there is, do they have a child currently attending a school in the district? Yes or no. previous school, the previous district child and household. What that means is that they don't have a child currently attending a Torrance school, but they did in the past. To the right is somebody who expects to have children attend your schools in the future, right? They maybe not right now, but they do have some coming down the line. And then to the far right is quadrant, which was divided into central, north, south, and west. And you can see that there are some differences in terms of right or wrong direction. What you tend to find is those people who currently have a child in your attending a district school, as well as those who anticipate having a child in the future, they were the most likely to say right direction, right, relative to their counterparts. And then you do see also the folks in the central quadrant tend to be a bit more positive than others overall. That group was sort of consistently that way throughout the interview. So moving on, we asked individuals to tell us in general how would they rate the quality of education provided in the Torrance Unified School District. Would they say it's excellent, good, fair, poor, or very poor? You'll see that we have 3 bars here. On the left is 2019. We also, as Dr. Mannon mentioned, we'd had the privilege of working with the district in the past on various surveys for the community, and since we had asked this question in the past as well, in 2014 and in 2007, I thought I'd bring the data in. What's striking is that, I mean, this spans over a decade, and what you see is that perceptions for the most part have remained quite stable over time, right? In fact, the difference between 2014 and 2019 is not statistically significant, meaning we can't be confident that reflects an actual change. Same thing from 2007 to 2014. So a lot of stability in how they view the quality of education in the district over time. So we, again, are breaking down how they view the quality of education in Torrance Unified School District here across some subgroups. When we're doing these subgroup comparisons, we will isolate those people who have an opinion. That's the best way to kind of look across it. So this is of those with an opinion, how they rate it. And you can see here that you don't get a real big difference by how long they've lived in the community, years in Torrance. You do see some differences by quadrant, right, with your central and your west quadrants being a bit more positive than the north and south. And then same question here, only this is by child status again. Do they currently have a child in the household, a current student in your schools, used to have a child who's now grown up that went through your schools, or anticipate having a child in your schools in the future? Remarkably consistent, right, as you go across that. There's not a lot of differences there between those groups, and you've got what appears to be about 70% plus in every single subgroup who have an opinion feeling that rating the quality of education in your schools is excellent or good. Continuing on that sort of topic area, we went on to say, okay, when compared to other schools in Los Angeles County, other schools in Southern California, as well as the schools you attended as a child, would you say the quality of education provided in Torrance is better, about the same, or worse? So by comparison to other schools in Los Angeles County, you can see that you've got about 7 in 10 respondents who said, oh, Torrance schools are better, right? You only had about 4% who said they're worse. You had about 16% there said they're about the same. When you get to other schools in Southern California, so you broaden it, you still compare favorably. You had 40% saying better, 29% said it's about the same, about 10% said worse. And then to the far right, we see nostalgia kicking in. And when you compare to the schools you attended as a child, right, where you had to walk uphill through the snow both ways, 25% said they're better. Those schools are better. Or no, sorry, Torrance schools are better. 34% said it's about the same. And then 27% said they're worse.
Now that I'm over 60, I say that about everything.
So then we go on to dig a little deeper. We say, okay, we've already asked about sort of overall quality of education and how you compare to other districts. Here we went on to say, to ask them to rate for each of those dimensions you see there on the left side, how well the district's doing. Are you doing an excellent, good, fair, poor, or very poor job? And these are asked in a random order, but we've sorted them from high to low based on that combined percentage of folks who said excellent or good. And what you see is, getting back to the presentation that just was right before ours, you're most strongly rated for keeping students safe, right? That's where you got your best marks. Providing physical education and athletics, preparing students for college, teaching science, technology, engineering, and math, right, on down. When you go to the bottom of the list, you see that there are some areas where it's more mixed opinions in terms of your performance. Teaching students skilled trades at the bottom there, providing counseling and support services to at-risk youth, and then preparing students for the jobs of the future. So it gives you a sense of sort of how they view your performance overall across a variety of different dimensions. And now at this point, whereas we've been focusing a lot on your schools, the quality of education, as well as your performance in a variety of specific areas, we sort of transition here to now saying, next, I'd like to ask your opinions about the Torrance Unified School District as a public agency, right? So we're sort of trying to separate the schools and performance, and now we're sort of thinking about you as a public agency. And we asked them, overall, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of the Torrance Unified School District as a public agency, or do you have no opinion either way? And you can see here about a quarter of the voters don't have an opinion either way. What that means is they're a bit disconnected. They don't know enough about how you operate as an agency to be able to venture an opinion, right? Among those with an opinion, however, it's almost 4-to-1 favorable to unfavorable, right? You've got 56% who said either very favorable or somewhat favorable opinion of the district, and then you've got about 16% who said unfavorable, either very or somewhat.
Can I ask a question quick?
Please.
Because we're seeing this in isolation as us. You clearly do polling all over the state of California, maybe some similar to this. Are we doing better than some, worse than some, better than most? Where are we? That's totally.
Yeah. Well, I will say, kind of echoing what I said at the beginning. Part of the reason I was interested in this study is because, quite frankly, most school districts have not been brave enough to then go out and ask these questions, right? And so, you're putting yourself out on a you're kind of putting yourself out there and saying, look, tell us, how are we doing here? How are we doing in this dimension, et cetera? And so most of the time we do ask questions about perceived quality of education. You're doing well in that. But these types of questions, you don't typically see school districts asking these questions, right? And so I don't have a lot of comparisons, like on this particular question, I don't have a comparison for you on that. Right?
Very good. That's just fascinating information.
Yeah, it is.
So overall, right, in terms of how they view you as a public agency, about 4-to-1 favorable to unfavorable among those who have an opinion. Keeping within those who have an opinion, you can look at it across years in Torrance, so how long have they lived here. You can see that that group that's been here about 10 to 14 years has the highest percent who sort of have a very favorable opinion as a district, but you can see across the board you've got 75% plus in all those categories about that, having a favorable opinion. You also see here again that central quadrant tends to be a bit more positive than the others.
Go Tartars.
Here we're breaking it down by their sort of current, past, and future child in the home, as well as they just have a child in the home. Here's what's kind of interesting. The opinion of TUSD as a public agency, those folks without a child in the home were the most likely to give you that sort of very favorable rating overall, interestingly enough. So, just because they don't have a child in the home doesn't mean that they have an unfavorable opinion, right? They may have no opinion, but once you isolate among those with an opinion, they tend to be disproportionately positive. So continuing on, we then asked them, and we said we're going to read a series of words or phrases, and for each we just want them to tell us in their own opinion whether it accurately describes Torrance Unified School District. So a yes means yes, it accurately describes the district, this word does or this statement does. A no means it does not, and then if they don't have an opinion, we ask them just to say so. So here again, we're seeing a quarter to upwards of almost 40%, depending on the dimension, say I don't know, right? So we got this gray area to fill in. But overall, what you find is that you get the highest marks for being viewed as caring and trustworthy and efficient, right? And then fiscally responsible and adaptable. And at the bottom, the innovative ones got a little more mixed result overall. So we've been warming up as we go through the interview. and kind of heading towards the communication and engagement section, right? So high-level views of your schools, high-level views of the district as a public agency. At this point, we get right to it, and we say, all right, for each of those statements that you see there on that slide, we simply ask them to tell us, do you agree or disagree with this statement, right, about the Torrance Unified School District? And so the first one says, the district does a good job communicating with residents. Second one is the district's responsive to residents' needs. Third is the district listens to residents when making important decisions. And the fourth one there is the district's transparent in how it operates. And here what we see, interestingly enough, is a clear mix of opinions, right? You've got, as you go down that list, you get the highest score for communication, but you're still operating with a little less than half of respondents say that I agree with that statement, you're doing a good job. You get about a third who say I disagree, and you get about 23% who just don't know, right? And as you go down, the scores shift a little more, a little less favorable as you go down to where you get to the very bottom. You get about a little over a third who think you operate transparently. You have about the same amount who say you don't, and you have about the same amount who have no opinion. So these are more mixed, right, as far as results. By the way, I have asked these types of questions not for school districts actually, but for cities. They'll do this kind of work a lot. And their numbers, you just tend to get less don't knows, right? Because they just feel cities are a little more, for the average resident who may not have kids, they're just a little more in tune with what their city's doing. So you're still getting a lot more gray area here than you would see for other types of public agencies. So when you look at that issue of that one statement about Tustin Unified School District does a good job communicating, we've broken it down here. I'm sorry, Torrance. You share the same acronym, so, and they also are one of my clients, and so I looked up, saw that, and said, Tustin, sorry. So we broke that prior slide, this one where it says the district does a good job communicating to residents at the top. We break that down by how long they've lived in the city, their age, and where they have a child in the home. And here's where you see that, essentially the 40 to 49-year-old age group, which also happens to align with a typical parent age, right? And then also if they've got a child in the household, they're much more likely to say they agree with that statement, right? Compared to their counterparts. Here again, you turn to the next slide, you can see that if they currently have a child in your schools, they by far give you the strongest numbers in terms of the agreement that you're doing a good job in communicating with them. And then you look across again, we see that central quadrant also having, pretty high percentage, and certainly a well above average percentage of folks saying that they strongly agree with that statement. Now, it surveys a little bit, obviously, or a lot about how are we doing today, but it's also an opportunity to sort of look forward and see, where can we improve, and in particular, as the ways in which people are now getting their information seem to evolve daily. We wanted to get a snapshot and ask individuals, what methods that the district could use do they view most effective in terms of their the district's ability to communicate with them as an individual. So we put it in terms of the individual, and we asked for each of those on the slide to tell us, would this be a very effective, somewhat effective, or not at all effective way for the district to communicate with you? Top of the list, email and electronic newsletters, and that was perceived to be the most effective method, followed by direct mail, right? We're still in an age, right, where, it used to be direct mail was number one across the board, always and every day. That's been changing over time to where people are getting a lot more comfortable with the digital communications, but you still have that group of folks who want to see direct mail. It's still important, it's still effective. And then you follow that up with social media sites, text messages, etc. Towards the bottom, advertisements in local papers and PSAs were viewed as being less effective methods. Now, here's an important one. We asked individuals, overall, would you say the amount of information you receive from the Torrance Unified School District is too little, about right, or too much, right? And what you find is the majority of folks felt like it's too little. Like there's an appetite for more information from the district. They'd like to see that. About 30% said it's about right. you only had 1% say it's too much, right? Which is interesting. Usually you can count on having a little higher percentage of folks say, I'm not interested, I don't need any more information. You get very little of that here. We went on for those folks who expressed an interest in receiving more information from the district. We asked individuals if they could please briefly describe the topic that they're interested in. This was asked in an open-ended manner, meaning we didn't present them with the list that you see here. They got to just tell us in their own words. We went back and grouped them into the categories you see here. Number one, the budding accountants out there, they want to see some more information about financial statements, fiscal planning, and spending. That was the topic that was mentioned most often. Safety issues, number two, about 17%. Just sort of general interest in newsletters or communications or, general information about the district and your schools, followed by curriculum, academic testing on down. So it gives you a sense for the topics that they are most interested in tackling with future communications. Okay, so I got 3 slides here that kind of sum this up for us. And again, I welcome questions from the board at any point. I'm going to start with how they view your schools, right? I mentioned that there's sort of 3 phases to this survey. When we looked at how they viewed your schools, clearly your schools are viewed very positively. That was especially the case when we asked them to think about Torrance schools in relation to others in the region, right? You got really high marks. Your strengths in particular were viewed as keeping students safe, providing physical education and athletics, preparing students for college, and teaching STEM. Among the list of areas for improvement, the ones that sort of jumped out were teaching skilled trades and career tech, counseling for at-risk youth, and arts. Distinguishing you as a public agency from your schools, we saw that their views of you were also positive. There's that gray area, right? There's that group of folks who don't know enough, and we want to fill that in. But when you isolate those people who do have an opinion, we saw that they viewed you very positively. And again, that was especially the case when compared to the state of affairs in the state of California overall, or in some other jurisdictions. We saw that the favorable opinions of Torrance Unified outnumber unfavorable by actually more than 3-1, and the strengths were you were viewed as caring, trustworthy, and efficient. When you get to the communication side, this is the area in the survey where we see opportunities clearly for some improvement. We saw that their opinions were mixed regarding your efforts to engage and communicate with residents. Most residents we saw, the majority, were actually interested in receiving more information from the district. The topics, as I mentioned, were financial statements and fiscal planning, safety, general information, and curriculum and academic scores. And again, importantly, we did not just say, how are we doing, but also kind of look to the future and say, how could we be more effective in communicating with our residents? And as I mentioned, there were some of those methods that rose to the top of the list in terms of email, e-newsletters, direct mail, social media, and text messages. So with that, I end my presentation. I welcome questions from the board.
Mr. Lee, can I?
Yeah, Mr. Gerson.
Thank you very much. I have to say a lot of I agrees and a couple of ahas. But my big question for you falls especially in the realm of social media when we try to communicate. Between Generation X, Y, and soon we're going to be communicating to Z. One generation more Facebook, Twitter, next generation more Instagram, Snapchat. I don't know what the next generation's preference is going to be. What's your input to us on that aspect of which social media, or do we have to
And I would also defer to Bonnie because she's more your communications consultant, but having done this type of work a lot, it is funny because I knew that when my dad got on Facebook, something fundamentally had changed in the universe, right? He, could never program a VCR. He's about as technically inefficient as you can get, and all of a sudden he's on Facebook, right? He still to this day does not know the difference between text messaging and emailing. I can promise you that. What's that?
This is live on the internet?
I understand.
He's on the internet, right?
See, no. I don't have to worry about that at all.
I remember when I started texting with my dad, yes, it was
Yeah,
nice.
and he still, again, doesn't know the difference between texting and emailing, and I love him to death, big heart. But the fact that even he is on Facebook, and then he'll show up at my kitchen table, and he has it on volume 11, right? And he sits there and he thumbs through these things, and the noise is coming out, and he's just panning through. It tells you that whole era where we had the digital divide, and they were worried about the seniors and the older folks just not being on board with these digital communications, and it's all a younger group. That's not the case. What you do find, though, is obviously Facebook tends to be far more popular with the 40 and over groups, right? Whereas it's not nearly, it's still the number one, but you get Instagram and you get some of these other sites for the younger groups. So you need to be paying attention to that. It used to be you had to pay attention to who do we have to send a newsletter to by mail, and then who can we send it by email. Now it's just understanding which one of those sites tends to appeal to those certain demographics, right? I don't know, Bonnie, if you wanted to.
I'm gonna have Laura comment on this. She's our social media expert.
Yeah, so I would agree. Good evening. I would agree with Dr. McClarney. Actually, anecdotally, what we're seeing across communities in California, what's so interesting about this data is that it's sort of proving what we're seeing anecdotally. And so what we often see from communities like this, where they're smart, they're paying attention, they're a yes and community. So they're not replacing their information with online, they're supplementing. So they're going online, they're going to their papers, they're talking to their friends, and they're getting it everywhere they can. But mostly we'll see, I agree with Dr. McClarney, we'll see Facebook, especially the Facebook communities, be where people find trust in the information that they're receiving. But also, there's groupthink happening, and group decisions are happening very fast, and they can change very fast as well.
And, I will say that, and you've all seen this as well, Nextdoor and other social media sites are gaining much more visibility as we work with our clients throughout the state. So we're paying attention to this. We are also paying attention to what your specific results say in this poll, because we did ask that question. And we're sifting through all of that, as well as the personal information people gave us.
The interesting thing that I've seen about Nextdoor, though, is a lot of reposting of stuff found elsewhere. So.
Yeah, Nextdoor is an interesting site. I'm on Nextdoor, and many of you may be too, but I'll just leave it at that.
Good. I think, do you have a concluding statement, or that was pretty much it?
That was it.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed working with you in the past, and
thank you.
This is always good to know. And yeah, it's like asking, well, what do you think of me? And then they give you the answer, and it's like sometimes you just go, wow, I wish I hadn't asked that question. But most of this is good information to have, and I think it really shows some transparency that we're willing to take, because we didn't get A's on everything here, and shows some what we kind of knew as a group anecdotally, that maybe we weren't communicating very well, and that kind of validates that a bit. And I expect Bonnie will be here in August with 1,000 cool things that we can look at. But at least this tells us that we're not spending our money unwisely, because, half the people out there really don't know what we're doing, which was kind of what our guess was going in. Mrs. Liu to my left.
I just want to quickly add that, we on the board here care about what our community thinks. We're always, one of the priorities we have is to make sure to address any concerns that the community has. So I'm glad that we did this, because we serve the people.
Mrs. Reagans.
Actually, similarly along those lines, I wanted to thank those in the community that did participate. I think there might be a few of you out there that were part of the process, and it really does help us to have the information and have you had taken the time and energy to contribute to this database to help us. Thank you so much.
If I may just add one thing. this is your baseline study, right? So
Yes.
you didn't have a chance to, I mean, this is giving you information on topics that you'd never asked before. I can tell you, agencies that look at this data and don't just say, oh, that's great, put it on the shelf and walk away. They actually take it to heart and think about what's there, and then you develop some strategies for more effectively communicating with your residents. I have, for the agencies that I've done, like tracking polls later, it shows, right, that you can move the dial. You can actually change perceptions, and so it's within your power to do that. That's a good thing, right? Sometimes it's hard to come back with a result and you go, well, it's not where I want it to be, and I have no idea how to make it better, and I wonder if I can. These are the kind of topics where you definitely can make a difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One final thing from this end. Very affirming that you had twice as many completing the survey as what we originally expected. That is huge. I've never seen that kind of jump before, and it says a lot about your community's interest in communications and the district. And then second, the big gray areas are, in my view, they're a clear canvas that we have the opportunity to populate with what matters here in the district. So we will be back in August. Looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Lee, because the presentation was not completed until today, they brought the presentation with them, Dr. McClarney did. We will get a copy of the PowerPoint, and it'll be on our website. That's why it's not attached to the board docs in the agenda, because we did not have it until this evening.
Good, we'll get it on the website, we'll get it out, we'll communicate it. Wow, imagine that. Okay, we are now to the point of our meeting of oral communications on two non-agenda items. Those who can leave, can leave. So that's good. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public in order to discuss district business in an orderly manner for the privacy and safety of the speakers and to help staff respond more directly. The board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including speakers to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such presentations is limited to 3 minutes. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another when addressing the board. Speakers are requested to state their name, address, and address the president from the podium and adhere to the applicable time limits. Complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. Any person who willfully disturbs any public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor with some numbers. Anyway, James Henry is the one and only tonight.
He's here.
There he is, he's here.
Come on down.
School board president and school board elected officials. My name is James Henry, a longtime graduate of North Torrance High School. I'm really disappointed you didn't call on me to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I've done it already. Well, we'll get you next time.
I have a little history lesson for you. The revised version of God Bless America was sung by Kate Smith in 1938 and was originally written by Irving Berlin. For some reason, this song has fallen out of favor in some circles because it contains the word God. We live in unprecedented times. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. On to discussion action items. Instruction to the public, speakers willing to address the board, wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. Total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require that public presentation to the board comply with certain procedures, including items 2 through 4 listed in order of oral communications. Item 10.2, approval of the proposed board policies updates. Do we have a motion, and do we waive?
Yeah.
Waive second reading.
Move to approve and waive second reading?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
God, we got some momentum here. Okay, we've got general functions consent, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Anybody want anything pulled?
Can I talk about 13.3,
13.3,
13.9,
13.9.
and 14.2?
14.2. Mrs. Lou? Nothing? Okay. Mrs. Reagan? Which one?
17.5.
17.5. Good, okay. Do we have a motion to approve everything else?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, let's start with 13.3, approval of routine elementary assemblies. Mr. Gerson.
It's really small. Just number 68 is puppies and reptiles for parties. Previously, it's been marked as only for end-of-year fifth grade activities, and I just think that in the future, we might want to consider opening it up. Now that we know the health benefits, we're focusing on mental health now. It's a part of the LCAP.
Reptiles?
Not the reptiles part, but the puppies part. I was thinking, I was surprised when my wife came home and told me that USC has an emotional support dog, Professor Beauregard Tirebiter, who any student group or anyone on campus can request the dog because they know the benefits, and we all know the benefits of playing with puppies. That perhaps in the future we might want to, if there's a stressful time during schools, that we allow schools to include that for mental health purposes as well. That was all I was going to say.
Do you have a motion to approve?
I'm seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Item 13.9, Mr. Gerson.
So, I don't know who brought it, but someone brought Watch Dogs, the Watch Dogs program to, was that you, Keith? Oh, I'm sorry? Oh, so DOG stands for Dads of Great Students, and as the dad of two TUSD students, I am really happy to see this program come and see how it evolves. Did some research on it to see what they were. And so many times, even as a TUSD teacher, I would call Dad up, and Dad would go, "Could you please call Mom? It's an education thing. That's a mom thing." And for us, dads are so incredibly important. Having two parents engaged in education and helping their children and telling their children how important education is. So my kid's school will be one of the ones doing this, and I'm very excited to see it. And thank you for bringing it, and I look forward to it.
Yes.
I move that we approve this item.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, it was at Towers, I think, back when Dr. Stowe was there,
It's been around a while.
and we did some stuff with it. I think we ended up at the Anza Inn, some of us, but that's probably not exactly the
Not
way.
with the dogs.
Well, no, yeah, no, but it just seemed to, we could collaborate there better than at the school site. Anyway, item 14.2, Mr. Gerson.
Routine secondary study trips. I wanted to point out that number 25 says Experience Science Academy, Torrance, California. I believe they've closed quite a long time ago.
Experium has closed.
And maybe we want to remove that from the list. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Motion.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Reagan's, I think, is the next one, 17.5.
Yes, actually, the 17.5 has to do with approval of health benefit rates for Torrance Unified School District employees for the 2019-2020 year plan. And I actually just wanted Dr. Stowe to speak to this for a moment to talk about how much of a change there has been or is represented here in terms of the benefit rates for this versus last year, and why or why not, or how that degree of change was determined. Let's put it that way.
Right, thank you, Mrs. Reagans. I think I mentioned this before when we were going through the decision-making process, but, so the health benefit rate has remained 0 for now.
The increase.
The increase, yeah, not benefit rate, thank you. The increase has been at 0 for now the 4th consecutive year. And this is able to have been done because we work with an insurance committee. So we have representatives from all the bargaining units as well as the Torrance Administrators Association. We work with a third party that assists us with this, Mercer, and they do rate surveys and bring us information. With our benefits department, I look at the amount of money that we have that we've collected from premiums from employees, and then the amount we've paid out. Because we're self-insured, we as a school district, we pay our own bills with the money that we receive from the premiums. And so we're able to, because of, even though we have some significant high-cost claims, medical claims, we have insurance above a certain amount that we get that back. So we insure ourselves against these, anything over $250,000. And we're able to take that surplus money and put it back into the rates to subsidize the rates for our employees. And so, we're continuing to educate employees about different things each month. We instituted that late this year. So when it's Mental Health Awareness Month, we have a flyer that we send out to all employees. Heart Health Month, we'll send something out just as reminders to educate and remind people about good practices for sleep or healthy eating and different kinds of information that's good to know and good to be reminded of. And we're always looking at how to keep our folks healthy. We incentivized a few years ago, a number of years ago now, for teachers who, have sick days left at the end of the year, to be able to pay them some for that, because we know that when kids here when teachers are here, kids are learning. We also know that when our employees are healthy, that they're better for themselves as well as for the students that they work with. And so, by taking that and leaving those rates where they're at, we're hoping that will continue to be able to happen as we really work to make sure that people are healthy, they're getting annual physicals and those kinds of things, and taking care of themselves.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight that because I actually think it's astonishing. For the 4th year in a row, we have maintained status quo on our health premiums. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard commiserating about the raises that they have seen. And it's because, as you said, that we're self-insured and can manage that fund for ourselves and for our employees. So thank you so much for doing that. And I appreciate the Insurance Committee for doing the work of looking at all that information and putting all that together too for us. So having said that, I move to approve.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, good, okay, good. Mrs. Reagan, since we're now to board oral communication, do you have any additionals?
I don't have a report from SoCal Rock because I haven't had a meeting there, but I do have a few anniversaries.
Good.
Should I go ahead and do those? So I have some classified personnel who have reached anniversary increments, and I think there's a few interesting people here. The first is for 10 years of accredited service is Jerry Lynn Mock. So thank you, Jerry Lynn. We talk to her every day. She's in one of the offices at TUSD. If you want to know which one, come visit and you'll see. The following classified employees have completed 15 years of accredited service. The first is Vilma Carazales from the custodian at Sherry, and Jose Trujillo, a custodian at West. So both people that I actually know and appreciate the effort that they make to keep our schools in good condition. And then there is an employee with 20 years of accredited service, and that's Elizabeth Ibarra. So thank you, folks, for working for us and keeping our kids and our schools safe and clean, et cetera, et cetera. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Gerson?
No more comments.
Mrs. Liu?
Just quickly, it's, since the last board meeting, I participated as a member of a team in Napa that, I can't speak today. I was involved with a walk against gun violence since our last meeting, and so I just thought that it was so timely. It just happens to be that we have our school safety presentation today. It was only about 2 or 3 weeks ago, so thank you for a wonderful presentation.
It was in Napa?
Yeah.
Well, that was tough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I wonder if it was in Bakersfield, they would have gone. Just, not that there's,
I noticed that.
So, you know, it's just,
I still walked a lot. I got a lot of my steps in.
I'm sure there was, you know.
I didn't drink, actually.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Anyway, good. We're gonna, one thing, can we put on the next agenda, excused absence for James Hahn?
Will I ask you?
Okay, good, okay. And then adjournment in memory of retired school psychologist, Dr. Rosalind Myatt. And at that moment, we will make a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn?
Seconded.
But anyway, good, done. Yeah, we're not gonna do it now. Yeah, we're not gonna do it now, it's too late.
But thanks for the effort to put me in.